One of the biggest things for me is response time. When I'm interviewing somebody, if it takes them a day or two to respond to me, probably not a good fit. I like instantaneous communication, so that's one of them.
Because I love that idea of you use the social proximity of your own network. You've already seen their working experience. You know your date. It's that beer. The beer test. You hire people only, but at the end, if you could share a beer together and you could imagine being together 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Welcome to Outsource to Profits. I have a fantastic guest from the world of franchising. And Maya, do you mind explaining to the world who you are, what you do, and how you serve the world?
Absolutely. My name is Maya Ratcliffe. I am the founder of Hawaii Fluid Art, the fastest growing art franchise in recent history. And we serve the world by nurturing and inspiring the human spirit one painting at a time.
We are going to talk about talent. And let me tell you, and this will be an antidote to where we're going with this. So if I look at when we launched Get Leverage, I got really lucky that I found what became my virtual assistant, became a project manager, and now a leader of project managers. Her name's Manuba. And she's not only a Swiss Army knife, but had the ability to take on and grab projects. Think of it as like pulling things away from me so that I could focus on $500 an hour value creation rather than $5 an hour tasks, and was constantly looking into my calendar, looking at what I was doing in a day and saying, I can stop you from doing that. I'll take, rather than just awaiting the push, so to speak. But this is where I want to take this question. In the first year and a half of our business, I didn't pay myself. So I over-indexed on finding talent in front of me so that we could grow through that talent rather than reactionary, pay myself first and try to find dollars to make it happen. You said something interesting as we were planning for this call. You over-indexed, almost like you overhired to scale and grow. Can you tell that story and the decision-making process of why you perhaps were pulling money out of retained earnings? You were pulling money of future profit to build a foundational layer of talent, knowing what you were sacrificing.
100%. So I am 3.5 years in, and I still have not paid myself. So I do understand that. When I launched the business, I launched it in Hawaii, and I realized quickly that I could not support a business that many hours behind the rest of the mainland, as we call it. So I relocated to Dallas, Texas, and it was just me in the beginning, and I was trying to do absolutely everything. Now, I knew that our franchise was going to be a hot and popular franchise. And so what I did is I started looking for talent in people that I knew already. And one of my first hires was one of my best friends for 14 years. And I remember I called her and I said, Trinity, I can't afford to pay you much, but I really need you, and I'd like you to come on board. And she gave notice that day and came on board and has really changed the trajectory of our brand. She's now our brand president. And with Trinity's help, we created a path of what we wanted our franchisees to experience even before we launched to the public. And in that path was real estate and construction management, franchise success managers, marketing department, a very deep marketing department. And we started putting people in place prior to launching. So when we did launch to the public, we could say with confidence, we have a support team that's going to help you achieve your goals.
I love this. And actually, I'd love to double click into something because there's probably a juxtaposing community of founders and CEOs that are getting information from both sides about the idea of hiring friends. I once when I started my first agency, I hired my cousin. I also had to let go of my cousin. Mm-hmm. And then I never heard the end of it from my mom and my aunt. And so I would love you to walk through for the audience. Because I love that idea of you use the social proximity of your own network. You've already seen their working experience. You know your date. It's that beer. The beer test. You hire people only, but the end, if you could share a beer together and you could imagine being together 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. But can you walk through the pros and the cons and the experience of hiring a friend? It was such an important position.
Absolutely. So Trinity and I have known each other for about 15 years, and we were acquaintances that became friends through a work experience. I was a top broker for Wells Fargo. She was a top real estate broker, and I saw her work ethic and thought, this is somebody that I truly respect. Now, on the other side of that, I'd also hired my son to help, who I then fired because he didn't do his job well.
So you've done this too.
Yeah, you have to be willing to test somebody, and if they don't pass the test, you have to be willing to let them go. And that was the case with my own child.
Interesting. So now let's actually talk about the pillars or the first principles of the think of their soft skills and hard skills. Mm-hmm. So you looked at your friend Trinity, and what are the skills and capabilities of the Swiss Army knife, mm-hmm. of that ideal first few employees that can do all kinds of different things? What were the top 1, 2, or 3 things that they had to possess? And they could learn the skills almost on the job, but what are the soft skills you were looking for that you knew, if I get a few of these hires right, I'll scale?
One of the biggest things for me is response time. When I'm interviewing somebody, if it takes them a day or two to respond to me, probably not a good fit. I like instantaneous communication. So that's one of them. The other is the ability to grind. If I call somebody at 7 in the morning, I expect somebody to answer. I'm up working from 4 in the morning, and I usually work till about 10 o'clock at night. So that's another aspect, somebody that's truly willing to grind. And you can tell if somebody shows up late for an interview, if somebody is just lackadaisical in their definition of what success is to them, etc. And then I wanted people that understood my business. So I had already built out, we had a beautiful website, we had a training portal, we had all these things, and I would give them access to certain things and ask them to write a brief description of what I could do better for my communication through that training program. And the people that took the time to really dissect it and say, this is fabulous, but not everybody learns this way. What about implementing video? What about doing this? That really caught my attention, because if they were willing to go in and spend their time prior to being hired to help my business be better, they were probably a good catch.
It's interesting that you said communication twice in that same kind of outline. We have our first principles actually painted on the walls of our office in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and overt communication is the number one. So I have 2 other business partners. We whittled down our own first principles down to a list that was shared. And then that became our joint first principles value proposition pillars for the company. Overt communication is number 1 on the list. Now, we're in the B2B world. Every customer, every day, has a communication point, whether it's an email, whether it's a WhatsApp, whether it's a Slack. They should know what we accomplished today, what we aim to accomplish tomorrow. Are there any roadblocks, challenges that we're facing every single day? There's nothing that drives me more insane than hearing from a customer, I haven't heard from your team, or I don't know what's going on. That's the simplest thing to overcome. Is there anything else that you could share has been a big lesson learning through your talent acquisition, through the growing of your team, that you think the audience could benefit from? So you've hired your great friend, and then you've hired other teammates. What other lessons have you learned along your journey?
If you see somebody lose interest, fire quickly. Do not drag out. I call them pity paychecks. We don't have room or time, nor can we afford pity paychecks. And so I think that's really important to understand. If somebody is not trainable, if they don't show interest, or if that communication starts to lack, it's probably time to let them go.
I was going to ask you, what are those signals? So, a lot of times there's the spidey sense, but what have you found is something like, oh, yeah, I can tell they're just not as engaged as they used to be?
Reports at the end of the day not being done is a big deal to me. That communication, just like with our franchisees, our customers, and our vendors, I expect communication as well. And so I just want to know a brief overview, not micromanaging of what did you do today, but tell me the top points that I need to be aware of. So if I get a phone call or an email, I am informed. And if they really start slacking off on those reports, that's a big sign for me.
Yeah. This was fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your franchise again, just so the audience knows if they're ever interested in investing in a franchise, or how to get a hold of you to talk about talent.
Absolutely. So the best email is info@hawaiifluidart.com. And we are an interactive art studio that work with people as young as 2 and as wise as 102. It's a place that's safe to create. You don't need to have any artistic skill. We are both business to business and business to consumer, and it is an engaging, fun experience that brings joy to anybody who enters our door.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your ideas around talent.
Oh, thank you for having me.